All right, all right, all right. First attempt at a live stream. So, yeah, if you hear any background noise, this is an HP. Don't buy shitty computers. They make all kinds of noises and they overheat it uh, for nothing. So, yeah. All right, so thought I'd keep this about an hour, perhaps, in length. I suppose I should have probably um, perhaps thought of something to speak about. But I'm the master of going off the cuff. So, yeah, we'll keep this about an hour in length. Yeah, I hope somebody will want to drop by perhaps and have a nice little chat. So, yeah, what to talk about? Okay, well, uh, as of um, this morning, I can now say that I have officially finished In Search of Lost Time. Oh, we got somebody in the chat. Yeah, whatever. Hey, thanks for showing up. You want a theme, like a theme to discuss? I don't know. Let's just play it by ear and see what we can come up with. Uh, yeah, so finished In Search of Lost Time this morning. This was a feat. I don't like to toot my own horn too much, but I have now read all of In Search of Lost Time. And I did this in about 7 months, give or take. And I don't know if that is the record, but it might be. So, yeah, this review of Time Regained. Um, oh, yeah, thank you. Yeah, I started this at the end of 2023. I'd actually read the first two volumes of it last year, but the rest I've just uh, bulldozed my way through since January. So this review of this will be forthcoming. Yeah, so that is Time Regained down. And moving from that, I started on, well, first of all, me ever the pursuer of controversial tones, books that rile the sensibilities of some and kind of confound those of others. I thought that it would be uh, pretty interesting to review a certain work, a certain fairly controversial work, which I ordered the other day, but which unfortunately I do not have in its entirety yet. And that is, of course, Oswald Spengler's famous or perhaps infamous The Decline of the West. Now, what's interesting about this is that I ordered the two volumes the other day, but oddly enough, it's only volume 2 that has come so far. So I don't have volume 1 yet. But this will be at least the first volume of this. I intend for this to be in the immediate future. I'm going to try to plow my way. Oh, yeah. I mean, hey, any attention is good attention, right? I mean, controversy sells. Yeah, so I intend to kind of plow my way through at least the first volume of this pretty quickly if I can. It's a pretty lengthy work. It's about like the size of like copy paper, and it's like the whole pages are full of text. It looks pretty dense. I've heard a lot about this. Really, what got me in wanting to read this was the fact that Cormac McCarthy mentions this in Stella Maris' final book, as well as he kind of commented on it in some interviews. So I've been familiar with this for some time. Thought it would do, maybe make some good content to review this. So as soon as the first volume makes it to me, I'm going to dive off into The Decline of the West. But since I didn't have the first volume of The Decline of the West, moved on to another rather philosophical work, one which I feel like I probably should have read a long time ago, and that is the Republic. So started that today. I hope, depending on how this upcoming week goes, I can um, uh, get this reviewed pretty quickly. I'd like to be reviewing this next weekend. Yeah, the true cornerstone of all Western philosophy. Yeah, so that's what I'm reading right now, what I intend to read, what I have just finished reading. So yeah, like I said, I probably should have come up with some kind of script for this, but you know, just winging it is how I always do. So, so yeah, just hang out for an hour, roughly, give or take, and yeah. So a theme. You want a theme? Let's see. We can whatever you want to rap about. Literature, philosophy, religion. Just anything. I say we don't shy away from controversy here. So, oh, this is just a prop. The funny thing is that I'm actually a teetotaler. Um, I'm actually a teetotaler, so this is actually just apple juice. I just thought it would look nice to include a little drink here and give me something to do with my hands. So yeah, this is not alcohol. This is just apple juice. I don't actually drink alcohol, but straight edge all the way, right? Yeah, so we can discuss anything related to politics. Oh, we want to go there, do we? Um, it's pretty crazy. I'll say that it is, or at least here in America, it is pretty crazy. Not in a good way, but such is the world we live in now. You turn on the news and it's just what fresh hell awaits us then. Um, yeah, so pretty nice out here for summer anyway. Here in Arkansas, it's been pretty pleasant actually. Not quite so oppressive as it was last summer and summer before. So we've had pretty nice weather here. I'm glad to say. I hope everybody else's summer out there is going well. Some good beach weather, perhaps. Do I like to wait? I'm not American, but it's very shit, bro. So I think shit is kind of like the kind of the par for the world now. It's pretty it's rough all over. It seems to be. Do you like lemonade? Hell yeah, I like lemonade. I actually have some bottles in my fridge in there of strawberry lemonade, which I drink nightly. It's kind of my habit. Yeah, I like all kinds of beverages, non-alcoholic beverages. Yes. Um, so yeah, rolling into the Republic, I feel like I'm kind of doing it backwards, right? I've read like I'm somehow managed to fight my way through Critique of Pure Reason and Tractatus Logico-Philosophicus. Now I'm going back kind of to where it all started with Plato, and this is interesting so far. It really is. I think this is definitely more digestible than a lot of the other kind of philosophy that I've read. I'm thinking some of it is perhaps rather specious, but I guess I'll reserve all judgment till the end. Yeah, so I apologize again if there's any whirring or groaning going on in the background. This is again in HP. Don't ever buy an HP because they can overheat in an igloo. And yeah, that fan will go just like an airplane about to take off. So, and of course, the camera quality on here is just pretty shite in itself. Um, yeah, so I really feel like I probably should have prepared something more than just current reads and whatnot to discourse on. Oh well, I can, I suppose. Uh, So the biggest question with USA is why is there no third option still? Yeah, that I guess people are kind of just inclined towards dichotomies. If you're talking about like the political parties, um, well, there is more than just the main two, um, but they don't get much traction. They don't get much votes really. Um, yeah, I think there now is probably the time when um, a third party, third option could could probably be called for, perhaps. Yes, it does seem more relevant now than before, especially since so many people seem to be quite disgruntled. Um, it's the situation's pretty touchy, pretty touchy. Um, what we have here now is not working at all. In fact, well, I got to tiptoe. I don't mind courting controversy, but I do got to tiptoe around this because I get the distinct impression that the powers that be, which what shall remain unnamed, um, have a tendency to want to flag any videos that critique the powers that be. So we won't name names, I suppose, but it has been a dismal 4 years here, and yeah, not so good. I did not think that I would ever live to see. I haven't even been around that long. I did not think that I would ever live to see the kind of shit that we're seeing now. Uh, pretty bad all around, especially what they're attempting to do. Not so much just what they've done, but what they have in mind. Yeah. So take a sip of my faux alcoholic beverage here. Although I will say, even though this is not alcohol, room temperature apple juice still packs a punch. Yeah. So, um, would you vote for Mailer? I'm not even. Which candidate is that now? I'm not even familiar with that candidate. I suppose. Um, Oh, Norman Mailer. Oh, yeah, the author. Oh, yeah, he was the libertarian candidate in New York, I believe, in the 60s and 70s. Um, um, I don't know that I would. Norman Mailer was not um a particularly upstanding character. Of course, I guess that's not. I have to have reviewed what his uh, would-be policies would have been, but never say never, right? Norman Mailer uh, doesn't seem to me to be perhaps um, the most trustworthy fellow, but I never met him. I could be wrong. Would you go get some oranges? Oh, wink, wink. Oh, yeah, that's the. If I read that correctly, uh, you know, with what's, I do understand absolutely the amount of controversy that the oranges uh, engender in the populace. I certainly understand that. However, um, you know, I think you know where you stand at least with the oranges, more so than what we have now, which I would not trust as far as I could throw them because they're basically openly treasonous at this point. I would point out that 198 members of a political party, which will not be named, but which starts with a D, voted to against a bill just here the other day to prohibit illegal immigrants from voting in federal elections. Um, and that is very alarming because that's essentially what they're doing is flooding the streets here with illegal immigrants, many of which are just are criminals and mental patients from Venezuela and South American countries, which it's funny, Venezuela's crime level just drops to a 22-year low because they have effectively uh, booted out all their criminals in favor of just shoving them up through America's southern border, which again the powers that be just are letting because I mean, why not, right? What other chance did you have to prevail except when you know, basically betrayed your actual country people for the past 4 years, except flooding the streets with people who should not have no right. Well, I'm not for isolationism, but I will say that the amount of money that we are throwing at not one but two wars, which could have been easily prevented had the powers that be really wanted to, is such that the national debt here has reached truly galactic proportions. And that is a very alarming development, I think. Didn't have to happen, but you know, I guess the people of America will just have to work harder to fund all the wars that are going on that we're you know bankrolling pretty much. Yeah, so pretty dicey political situation here in America. Yeah, I feel like that's just such a that shows like where we are is so hyper political world, where that's kind of like the go to, well, what do you think about this or this? Yes, it is indeed too late to pull out now. Um, we gotta, especially with the Middle East one, that one really we can't afford to forsake that ally. But um, yeah, didn't have to happen, I don't think. But you know, there's nothing easier than to give away money that isn't yours. So yeah, I just got to keep going, I guess, until you know, just we throw enough money, something's got to work, right? Something's got to stick. Um, yeah, so it's pretty rough here. Well, the question about immigration, I mean, obviously, immigration is fine as long as it's legal and by the books. That's fine, but that's really not what they're doing here in America. They're just actively allowing cartels and gang members to just overrun the border and has drastically increased violence in certain major cities because of that. Um, and yeah, the fact that they voted against prohibiting these people who have never paid taxes and do not hold citizenship here from voting in federal elections, I think is rather telling. Um, that again, what other option do we have when we've spent past 4 years mismanaging things so direly? But yeah, pretty dismal. Uh, Pretty dismal. I think a lot of people are fed up with both sides of the line, but yeah, it's pretty dark times here. It really does feel like it. And I feel like there's so much going on behind the scenes. I don't feel like that. I can feel that there is a disturbance in force somewhere. That there is quite a bit going. It's not just what you see; it's what you don't see. And that's kind of the thing that really kind of you got to ponder sometimes. Yeah, so uh, yeah, uh, pretty pretty bleak times we're all living through. Not only here in America, but mass migration did shape humanity throughout all its history. Yes, it did. Yes, definitely in Rome and such, as well as certainly in the World War II when we took in a lot of refugees and stuff from Europe and stuff. Uh, Question is, if could it be restrained in current climate? Well, because climate change will make it 10 times. Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know how much how much could be restrained. It's kind of hard because really isn't even any attempt at this point to uh, at restraint. So I guess that's kind of up in the air, perhaps. But yeah, migration is perfect. I mean, America is a country of migrants, but um, I think that there needs to be proper vetting and proper standards that need to be met. And I don't think that it's right for people who have no stake in the country to vote and have say in that country's direction when they don't have any skin in the game, so to speak. And I feel like that's kind of a part of the plan, perhaps, with again those powers that be. But yeah, so politics as usual. Yeah, not fun times we're living through. Um, Pretty rough out there. Cost of living is so much higher. Are you pro or anti-Vietnam? Well, obviously, I didn't live through that time. I probably would have been anti-Vietnam. Well, I'm anti-conscription. I don't think that's not an ethical position, which I think is really justifiable because it is a complete sacrifice of the individual for the sake of the state. And I don't think that people can be justly compelled to fight. So, being that there was a draft in Vietnam, yes, I would have been against Vietnam, although it was, from everything I know about it, a roundly messed up affair, kind of on all sides. Left a deep wound in the country, which we still feel today. Uh, Predictions do say that Bangladesh will turn into Atlantis when waters break. And fun fact, there are more people living there than in Russia. So yes, yeah, especially if the numbers are to be believed about the threat of climate change. Although, while I absolutely would never deny that, I think that there's a tendency towards kind of fear mongering a bit. I feel like uh, though there absolutely, I think, is a valid threat there, definitely, especially in low-lying areas. And trust me, I live. It should be noted that Arkansas was once there is a delta here in Arkansas that was once an inland sea. Um, so yeah, definitely a threat. Although I think that the exact date for a lot of stuff is not quite as set in stone as a lot of the numbers that we've received would have us believe. Oh, hot hippie. Yeah, I don't know that I would have protested in Vietnam or anything like that, but I probably would have been against it. I don't think again anything with conscription in. I don't think I could be for. But yeah, so I hope everybody's summer out there is going good. Like I said, we've had really nice weather here. Very, very balmy, very good beach weather, even though we don't really have beaches here except lake beaches and such. Hope everybody else is having a good time, staying cool at least. Yeah, so man, I really feel like I should have scripted something uh, before starting this, but uh, yeah. So, any suggestions for you know? It's all good. It's all good. I can show some books here that I have. If anyone wants to see like uh, books that I recently acquired, or some more of the kind of more contentious tones that I might have, perhaps, if anyone would like to see that, or anything of that sort. So I recently acquired, actually, down here, a copy of a book, which I do. You have even have time to any Karl Marx? No, I have read some like excerpts of Marx in the past, just like bits and pieces here and there. No, I don't. Uh, I don't have any of his work. I feel like I'm kind of I don't know that I really want to dip off into that. I kind of feel like I've seen enough of that to maybe make a good judgment call regarding that man's work. Chuck Norris is my spirit animal. Hell yeah. Hey, Dustin Neely. Yeah. Welcome to the chat. Chuck Norris is my spirit animal. Yes, that is a great spirit animal to have. Definitely. That's the most vicious and the most dangerous one to have. Yeah, so recently, just the other day, actually, I acquired a copy of a book, which I feel like is kind of obscure, um, which I don't think well, if there's reviews on here on YouTube, it's pretty few and far between. That would be this Gothic novel by Jan Pataki, which is the manuscript found in Saragossa. Um, Very interesting story behind this book, especially behind its author. If you didn't know, Jan Pataki was I think he was Polish. He was a count. He killed himself after he was convinced that he was becoming a werewolf. That is actually a true story. He shot himself with a silver bullet after he believed that he was becoming a uh, a werewolf. He left this pretty sizable book, which it's kind of obscure now, I think. So I bought this. I don't know exactly when I'll get to around to reading this, but I'd like to sometime. I don't know if I'll be able to squeeze this in by the. That is something. Yes, it is definitely. I don't know that I'll be able to squeeze this in by the end of the year, but I might perhaps uh, try if need be. And let's see. Oh yes. So yes, they are, especially like what's the one? Uh, let's see, the Howling. That's a pretty good, or the Wolfman, the classic Wolfman, or the remake with Benicio del Toro. Actually, underrated werewolf movie right there. Um, oh yeah, another thing I thought could be of interesting conversation is the recent controversy surrounding Neil Gaiman, which I just became aware of not too long ago. The only book of Gaiman's that I've read is American Gods here. Well, I quite like the film adaptation of his novel Coraline. I really liked that. Yeah, so it sounds like that's another example of don't meet your heroes. Perhaps it sounds like he did something sordidly sexual. But yeah, I gotta say, this book's pretty good. American Gods. I don't know that I'm the biggest. Oh wait, I have read another Neil Gaiman book, which is Volume One of The Sandman up here. Actually, I found The Sandman kind of underwhelming, but I did like American Gods, and also he wrote the 2007 uh, film adaptation of the epic poem Beowulf, which I also uh, greatly like quite a bit. And it's sad to see everyone kind of fall like that. Um, Another person of some renown who made a mistake uh, and did some things that they shouldn't. So yeah, I'm sure that situation will develop ongoing. I'm grasping here, people. I just kind of was like, I got time today. I'm actually off today. Usually I just have to. Usually I have to work kind of on Saturday. So I was like, why don't we do? Yes, Dog Soldier. I have seen. It's been a long time since I've seen that. Um, did you like the? Yeah, I love Beowulf. Well, I like the animated Beowulf movie, the one that Robert Zemeckis did in 2007 that had Angelina Jolie and Anthony Hopkins and such. And that was a really good movie. I felt it deepened the story of Beowulf quite a bit because I tried reading Beowulf and It's cool. It's a very interesting artifact, but I didn't the story didn't hook me so much. It was kind of very straightforward. I found, but I felt like that film adaptation really kind of added depth to it, deepened it. Um, so yeah, I quite did. I noticed that you are quite often keen on adaptations in general. Yeah, I like a good adaptation. I like to see people adapt things and kind of add a flair to it to the screen that maybe the book didn't have. I'm kind of the opposite, as I believe every adaptation does take a little bit of that essence away. So um, recently, just the other day, I happened to be. If you'll bear with me here while I grab it, I happened to be in the bookstore, my local bookstore, and I picked up a copy of the Lord of the Rings here because I used to have a box set of the Lord of the Rings. I used to have well, that and the Hobbit, but they weren't the spines all split, so they were basically ruined. But I saw this omnibus 3-in-1 volume the other day, and I picked it up because the Lord of the Rings. This is prime like fantabulous adaptation material right here. Those films based on this book is just uh perfect. I mean, truly films I can find very little to fault with. Um, do I have Silmarillion? No, I don't have the Silmarillion. Um, I guess I don't have. No, I guess I do still have the Hobbit because it's the box set's down here. I've retired it to the box, the Goodwill box, I suppose. But no, I don't have the Silmarillion. But depending on how much I like the Lord of the Rings, going back to it, I might pick that up at some point because um, I read the Lord of the Rings years ago. I admire the story, although I found the characters kind of stiff a little bit. I think the characters I think reading this again, I will find the characters. Um, I will find the characters in the movies probably still better because I remember the characters in the book being kind of stiff. But I do like the story, and I wanted to revisit it. And again, this is just some of the best adaptation. So these may be like the best adaptations ever done. Previously thought unfilmable book turned into three of the greatest movies ever made. Right. So yeah, I might, if I can, I would like to try to squeeze in another read of The Lord of the Rings this year if can. May not be able to manage that, but we'll see. Let's see. Stephen King's Silver Bullet movie versus book. Have you read? I have not read the book. I have seen the movie. That is a really good movie. I like. I'm a big fan of Gary Busey. I think he was a really great actor whose career was kind of tragically cut short due to the knock on the noggin he received in that wreck. But I thought it was a really great film with him in it. The book I feel like is kind of a ripoff because I've seen that book in the store, and it's literally like it's not even a book; it's a pamphlet, like that thin, and it's like $20. So I was like, I'm gonna pass that right on by. But I do like the movie quite a bit. I thought the child actors were good. The story was kind of predictable, but it was well done. It was well done. Um, have you read Carl Ove Nosgard Nostr? I have not. I have heard though that it is kind of um, it's kind of similar to In Search of Lost Time that I just finished today. Um, but I don't know that I would undertake to read that because um, I'm just not so sure how interesting that guy's life is to merit reading through his autobiography. I mean, oh my goodness, Proust's autobiographical novel here. Um, that was a chore in its own right to get through. It was pretty. It was pretty. That was kind of a struggle, and that was not interesting in the conventional sense at all. So I don't know if I would dive off into however many volumes are in my struggle, but I have heard good things about it, and I've read certainly like I read the Amazon uh, sample for a couple of the books, and it does strike me that that guy can really write. So no knock against that at all. I just don't know that it's something that I would personally dive off into. American Gods won a Hugo. I haven't read it. Yes, it did win a Hugo. I don't think that was appropriate, not because it's a bad book, but because it's not a science fiction book. And Hugo is predominantly for. In fact, it actually won. let's see, winner of the Hugo and Nebula Awards. Yeah, those are both science fiction awards. I don't think this fits the bill. It's not that this is a bad book. I actually quite liked it, but um, I don't think it was appropriate for it to win those awards. And also, um, what's interesting, but what I found interesting about American Gods is that Neil Gaiman is such a fan of like Norse mythology, right? Um, and so this book is pretty much all about like Odin and Thor. Those are, and also some like Egyptian gods and such. Those are kind of the main characters in the book. But it's weird that in this book, I don't even think he mentions the Greek gods, and that's strange because the Greek pantheon has had such a bigger and more appreciable impact in American culture than any of the Norse gods have. I mean, like Atlanta, the city is named, after Atlanta, the character from the mythology. So it's very strange to me that it's so focused on a seemingly irrelevant pantheon when the main pantheon that has bearing in America was kind of uh, excluded. And it's weird because America, is such a product of the Hellenized world that I just found that odd. Oh, come on, everyone knows Lord of the Rings adaptations are out there, but they're more of an exception. Like, yeah, for every 100 shit adaptation to get 10 right. Yes, I think most adaptations of books are probably just kind of rote, right? Like you get bestsellers like um, The Girl on the Train or something like that. You get that, and then it's just kind of like, though, like a lot of books I feel like are written, especially with like Nicholas Sparks books, right? Um, Nicholas Sparks books are like written with the express intent of being immediately adapted to film. So I think a lot of film adaptations of books don't really like improve on the source material or add a whole lot to the experience. But the Lord of the Rings definitely were. Um, Thoughts on Bukowski? Haven't read much of his poem. I have not read any Charles Bukowski. It's his work has struck me as kind of that it just doesn't it doesn't really have that much. I haven't felt drawn to read any Bukowski, although I've seen Ham on Rye in the store a lot. Like it just kind of jumps out at me because that neon kind of cover, um, which really is kind of catches the eye, and I've been like, should I read that? But then Bukowski, like was primarily a poet. Um, and I'm not the hugest on poetry and his prose style. I'm wondering how like because like I read um, earlier this year the Book of Disquiet, which is by Fernando Pessoa, who was also predominantly a poet, and I did not resonate very well with the prose in that book because it was a bit much. It was kind of too hyper poetic, so I was kind of iffy on what Bukowski's actual writing style would be like, how well that might jive with me or not. Um, Tom Shippey just did a new translation available. Yeah, I have the same because I saw your video of it. I have that same um, copy of it right here, which I think I read like half of this several years ago. It was about 8 or 9 years ago that I tried reading this, and like I said, it's good. It's definitely an exciting story, but it was. I think I was expecting more thematic content to it, kind of like when you read like the Iliad or the Odyssey, there's like lots of kind of musings and that about war and fate and stuff like that, which is cool. And that's what kind of gives the book staying power. But I didn't really find that much of that kind of thing in Beowulf, or at least of what I read of it, because it seemed to be a pretty straightforward tale about a guy who fights monsters, which is cool. Although I do think it was more kind of thoughtful in the film version, I suppose. Um, yes, Lord of the Rings is that those truly are probably the greatest adaptations of a book ever made. Well, hello there, Samoki dude. Yes, Britton, my man Britton. If y'all haven't checked out his channel, go give him a look. He does a lot of great vids and reviews of books all across the spectrum, kind of like what I strive to do here. Show him some love. He's got a great channel out there. are interested in more recent stuff like House of Leaves, I actually have House of Leaves. I read it 2022. I like House of Leaves, although I thought it kind of by the time I finished it, it had kind of overstayed its welcome a little bit. When you realize that it really is going to just come to naught, yeah, I was kind of, especially that whole last section with all the notes and correspondence between the narrator and his mother. It kind of lost me at that point. But there were some scenes in that book that really will stay with you. In the True Testament, you have to excuse those glass pag mufflers that whoever is outside is using. They trust me, right here on the highway and out here in the country, you get some loud ass mufflers going by. But yeah, the yeah, House of Leaves. There are some scenes in that book that really stuck with me, and it's so swear they just do that to annoy me. But uh, there's some really great scenes in that book that are really they really kind of make your pulse pound a little bit, and it's a testament to the book's power that it does that, and you know it's not real. That's what's so cool about it is that you like the book is kind of upfront with the fact that it's basically just bullshitting you, right? But you still get so sucked into the story of like the house and everything that you really get absorbed in it, right? And I feel like um, the book is really meritorious and worth reading on that ground alone. I've not read anything else by Danielewski or Lusky or however his name is pronounced. I've heard bad things about its follow up book, that Only Revolutions thing. I heard it wasn't that good, and then he kind of went off into something very long, elaborate, which I don't know about the status of the completion of that. Um, what are we talking about here? We talk about books and basically a little bit of everything. We can, like I said, we can go in whatever direction y'all want to go. You might be surprised by Bukowski. I'm not a poetry fan either, but the little I've uh, little I've read have impressed me. Very strong-witted. Uh, Always a punch at the end. He publicly shitted on Frank Earl. Oh, I do love someone that can throw a little shade like that. Definitely. So I may give Bukowski a chance sometime in the future. I feel like maybe there is something there for me to dig into. Would you say it's more interactive than a plain narrative digital story? Yes, because you're literally having to twist the book um, at certain points. And while I did admire that up to a point, there did come a point reading the book where I felt like it was kind of getting gimmicky. It was getting a little bit too involved, a little bit too convoluted. Where by the time I finished it, I was kind of like, okay, let's wrap this up. But still, I can definitely see why people vote that as one of the most disturbing books that they've ever read because it's very disorienting in a very physical sense. And Andre, hello, Andre, are you gay? Only on Tuesdays and months that end in Y. No, I'm not. I'm not gay. No, but thank you for asking again. No wrong questions, I guess. No, I'm not gay. Man, whatever says. Also, you don't strike me as a poetry guy. Do you have some favorite prose? Yeah, you mean like authors whose prose I really like that I find the most readable. Yeah, sure. Obviously, Cormac McCarthy, right up front. That is the true uh, that's the true like modern King James kind of uh, uh, prose that I like. That's eschews a lot of the kind of uh, breakup of sentences that you see in most prose now. Lots of it involves polysyndeton, which is what I like. Not so many commas. It's just stringing things together. And it has a nice flow to it, I think, and also his similes and metaphors are just fantastic. Nabokov is one of the greatest prose stylists ever. You can read Lolita or Pale Fire or what have you, and it's just bowls you right over because of how uh, fantastic it really is. And then also Melville, of course, Melville was the main inspiration for McCarthy, I guess. Um, uh, Really great prose. That's the kind of the beginning, I think, of the biblical prose revival, at least here in America, anyway. And also, oh, William Gay. Um, if you have not, uh, yeah, yeah. So I see. Yeah, I thought this was question. Yeah, no wrong questions. No wrong questions. I'm not gay. But you know, yeah, I'm, yeah, not gay, not me. No, but to each their own, right? No, no wrong questions, no stupid questions, or at least um, I don't guess so. But yeah, William Gay. If you're not familiar with William Gay, he was a contemporary of Cormac McCarthy. Cormac McCarthy actually mentored him a little bit through correspondence by mail. And he may have been like the finest prose stylist, uh, certainly of the southern United States. Absolutely, he is the only author I think that could outright McCarthy. Um, and McCarthy's books are worth more um, uh, because they're more cerebral, they're more ponderous. William Gay's books were more just straightforward stories. But oh my goodness, if you ever get a chance to read The Long Home or Provinces of Night or something like that, pick it up because it is truly some mouth-watering prose in that. And I think he may have been, and his story was so great. He was just a blue-collar guy who lived in the backwoods of Tennessee. He didn't even publish his first book till he was like 50. But man, he could back it up. Like he walked the walk. That prose was astounding. Long Home, just a fantastic book. Um, Read any Jim Goad, very controversial writer, had to get his magazine made in China because no American. I'm not familiar with that, but if that is true, that definitely does sound very controversial. I'm guessing there's probably some uh, rather contentious politics perhaps involved in that. Dude reads over 1,000 pages of The Dark Tower. Amazing. He thinks Bale was born. Well, The Dark Tower. I get it. It's definitely not for everybody, but the especially the first volume of The Dark Tower. Like, and I have it like literally right here underneath the thing. My computer always rests on top of my Dark Tower books. This book right here in particular is Stephen King's best book, in my opinion. His best individual book. And I wanted to do kind of like a Stephen King ranking video of books of the books of his that I've read, and not to spoil it, but this one would be number one. The Gunslinger is the one book of his that I just can't screw with. Like the only thing. The only thing about it that I don't like is that it's the first book in a series, and the quality of the later books do not necessarily match up with this one. But the prose in this is literary prose. Like this proves to me, one of Stephen King's kind of harsher critics, that he could write like genuinely good prose when he wanted to. And it's funny because in the foreword to this, he said that he didn't reading this back. He didn't like it uh, because he thought it was pretentious and he was trying too hard. I wish he would be pretentious and try too hard again because it would make his books read so much better than they do. But overall, The Dark Tower, is it bloated? Is there too much stuff in it? Yes. But still, well, let's see. You were on what, The Wastelands now? If you don't like that one, that one was just pure adventure, right? And that's the thing about The Dark Tower. It is so pretensionless in terms of its content. It's just pure adventure. It's just a forward moving, journey to the tower. But man, it packs a punch. And the fourth book, Wizard in Glass, a lot of people don't like that one, but that is one of the most emotionally impactful things that Stephen King ever wrote. That one really kind of gets you in the feels, especially there towards the climax of that book. And that last one, oh my goodness, the death scenes in the final Dark Tower book, or volume 7. I know he's written at least one book since then, which he should not have done. But the seventh book, I mean, some of those deaths get you, man, because you've been through thousands of pages with those characters. And the world that he invented in these books, it's just so unique, right? It is such a unique fantasy world. It's got the Lord of the Rings type magic and the Arthurian stuff, but it's also got like the good, the bad, and the ugly, and that kind of spaghetti western feel to it. And again, the Gunslinger is just, this is the one Stephen King book that I cannot touch. Like the prose in this is gorgeous. The characters are good. The story, especially the climax of the story. Oh my goodness! Well, the climax of the story is what I would aspire. I would aspire to write something as good as the finale to the Gunslinger, the little conference between the Man in Black and Gunslinger. Love that shit because it said like you have to finish, or at least I had to finish the series after I got to that point. But yeah, which version of Beowulf do you have? Yeah, I have the City Classics. It's the Raphael Burton Raphael translation. I realized that the Seamus Haney is the go-to translation for Beowulf, but this one's cheap, so the dollar speaks loudest, I guess. Um, let's see. Jim Gode's good. Jim Gode writes for Counter Currents nowadays. That not familiar with that publication. I think Gavin McInnes, I do know who that is, says Jim Gode is the best writer of this generation. Does he write like books or like I was assuming that it would be like articles and essays? Um, Stephen King equals poop emoji. Well, much of the time I do agree with you. Much of the time. Who's hotter, Penelope Cruz or Anna de Armas? Penelope Cruz. Oh, today. Sorry. Say Anna de Armas. I'm not. I think I know who that is. Is she the one that played Marilyn Monroe in that god awful Netflix movie about her? If that's who that is, no, I'd still say it's Penelope Cruz. It is Penelope Cruz. I'm locking it in. Yeah, Penelope Cruz. Wizard and Glass is breaking my soul in a bad way. Well, that that's the emotional heart of the Dark Tower, right? It's like when you because there's so much of the stuff in the Gunslinger, especially pertaining to in that early section. There's mentions made of a certain character named Susan, and then there's another character who Roland nearly kills. There's kind of allusion to something that happens there, and then it's that when you it's Wizard and Glass where you understand what that is. And really, I found the finale of Wizard and Glass to be, um, it really is extremely powerful. However, it gets kind of kooky in the frame portions of it, not in the flashback part, but in the overall, um, the actual Dark Tower story gets especially kind of kooky. I was going to say, if you want the Seamus Haney version, I actually have the Seamus Haney version because after I bought the Burton Raphael version years later, I found the Seamus Haney version in a library sale, so I have it in a box over there somewhere. I haven't picked Beowulf back up in years though. Um, let's see, Philip K. Dick's under. Yeah, well, I don't know if he's underrated now. I think there's a lot of people who love Philip K. Dick. Now, I will say that The Man in the High Castle, I think, is his finest book. That's one of my favorite books ever. Um, yeah, that's an underrated book, I think, because I don't think that Amazon adaptation quite did it justice. I think and all the new people coming in, thinking I'm drinking like whiskey or something here. Um, I don't think a lot of people are quite as hot on Man in the High Castle as I am. But yeah, let's see. Any chance you Gold writes fiction and nonfiction? I'll check it out. Like it sounds controversial, and we peddle controversy here on this channel. So I'll definitely check it out. Any chance you read Donato Cari or Caris? Mostly criminal detective stuff. He's Italian, ex-criminal. No, however, I do enjoy a good mystery every now and then. I might have to give that a look. Penelope Cruz, like, yeah, is Scanner Darkly movie the best? I have not seen the Scanner Darkly, or at least not in its entirety. Um, the best Philip K. If you're talking about like fidelity to the book, probably by everything. Richard Linklater is such a fan of Philip K. Dick. Like in Waking Life, there's like an extended monologue where the characters discuss Philip K. Dick. Um, but I think Blade Runner is probably like the best movie, just all around film that has ever been made on a Philip K. Dick book. Even though I still prefer. I'm one of the very few people that prefer Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep to Blade Runner, even though I love Blade Runner quite a bit. The book packed a lot more into a very short page count. All that stuff about Mercer and the religious aspect I really enjoyed, which is completely absent in the film. Um, but yeah, as far as fidelity to the book, I would say that Scanner Darkly adaptation is probably the best. But in terms of just overall film experience, I would probably still say Blade Runner. Um, it's the best adaptation of his work in terms of capturing his style. I've seen that movie and it left me with questions. Yes, Philip K. Dick leaves you with a lot of questions in the books too. They need to make, a counterclock world. I have that book down here. I feel like I may be the only person on YouTube who has actually done a review of that book. I did a review of it several years ago. I think in like 21 or so. That was a book that had a very interesting idea at its heart, but I don't think the ultimate execution of it was quite as good as it could have been. There was one really cool scene in that book where the child characters kill, and he surprised me by killing off a main character in that book, which I did not expect him to do. Um, but that that book is kind of an oddity. It was not my favorite book of his, but I kind of did appreciate the wackiness of it, if nothing else. Let's see, rotoscoping in that film. Yeah, it was a very inspired choice, definitely. You don't see rotoscoping much anymore, not since like Ralph Bakshi, I feel. You read the Turner Diaries, nothing's off. Yes, nothing is off limits at this point. And for the new people that just came in, I hope to shortly be diving into this bad boy right here. This is the second volume, as I said earlier. I know some new people have come in. I hope to be diving off into this very quickly as soon as the first volume makes it into my hands. We're going to see what this is all about. McCarthy was interested in it, even though in that interview where he talked about it, he was very deaf and kind of tap danced around openly endorsing this. But we're going to see what it's all about. We're going to see what it's all about. We're going to see, if there's any merit to it. Let's see. Your props to Prime Sean Young Blade Runner. Let's see. Props to Prime. Oh, no, I said Neon Genesis Evangelion equals crap. I disagree. I liked. Well, no, a lot of some of it is crap, definitely. That the just ridiculous over sexualization of it, and that is crap. Yes, but the overall story was cool. Um, I think the end of Evangelion was a really good movie. I recently watched the rebuild movies because they're on Amazon Prime. And though that truly was complete shit. Like the rebuild of Evangelion movies were total crap. But I think the original series, aspects of it certainly have not aged well at all. But it's up in the air kind of as to what the story actually is. I feel like because it's so opaque with how it reveals itself. But I like some good cryptic crap that I can kind of just get lost in, and I liked Evangelion. I thought it was pretty cool. Although I do understand why a lot of people don't like it. Cowboy Bebop. I don't think Cowboy Bebop is the GOAT. My personal favorite anime series. I don't watch a lot of it. Well, Attack on Titan. I do like that. I think Attack on Titan is truly a great, like, time will tell, but I think Attack on Titan may be one of like the all-time great stories, right? Like up there with like Lord of the Rings, perhaps someday. We don't know, but that might happen. But my personal favorite might be Ergo Proxy. If you have Hulu, any of y'all, give Ergo Proxy a watch if you like iRobot or kind of Asimov stuff like that. Great stuff there. It's very, and also if you kind of like a Gnostic Matrix kind of vibe, definitely give Ergo Proxy a look because it's thoughtful, but it's also thrilling. Great series. Um, let's see. Okay, here's the big one. I know you said that you have never read a visual novel, but would you consider them as much? Yeah, definitely. I don't think that. I think that certain forms of media are superior to others, but I don't think that any form of media is necessarily irrelevant. Like I think print media, prose, like writing books, is in terms of what it does for you, like cognitively, because that's the good thing about reading, right? There are like genuine cognitive benefits because your mind is having to interpret a bunch of little scribbles on a page and craft a world in your own mind that corresponds to that. And like I don't think like comics. I love comics. I read quite a few. I have read quite a few comics myself, but I don't think that they're quite as beneficial to the reader because much of the work is already done for you. You don't have to interpret; you just have to observe. So, as far as visual novels, and I will one day I will get to that one that you keep recommending, Slay the Princess. I will get to that, but I do of course think that it can be relevant. Although I don't know that I would say that it is quite as I do think that like print is better than film, and although I think video games might possibly be superior to film in terms of what they can do, kind of. But I do still think print will always be kind of the most mental, the most mentally, uh, beneficial one. But yeah, I don't discount the relevance of any kind of medium of storytelling. It all depends kind of on the story, right? What is your favorite era in film? My favorite era in film. Oh, that's hard. That's a tough one. Um, if you go back to like the pre-code Hollywood of like the late 20s, early 30s, you can get some real bangers out of that. Like even though my favorite book is Frankenstein, right? And like very few adaptations of Frankenstein get the story right. James Whale's Frankenstein, the movie, is still just absolutely one of the best films ever made. I'm saying that as a staunch advocate of the book. That film, taken by itself, is still absolutely great. And if you ever get a chance to watch the 1935, not the 40s version, but the 30s version of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, way raunchier and racier, you can definitely see the pre-code mentality there. Definitely give that a look. But as for my favorite era of film, it is not the 70s by and large. I don't think there was a lot of cynicism in film in Hollywood in the 70s, as there would be because it was a very tumultuous time. But I think maybe the 80s. I think if you look at the films, at the amount of great movies that came out in the 80s, I think that decade really holds up. First Blood, Empire Strikes Back, and not just the big budget Hollywood film, but you even have littler films like uh, let's see, what's a kind of a like I think didn't My Dinner with Andre come out in the 80s, or that may have been the 70s. No, I think it was in the 80s. You got so many just great films from the 80s. Um, let's see, let's see. Oh, so yeah, I think 80s would be my favorite era of film. They do have bad rep because there's a ton of like dating sims and anime, but when you find the right one, the interactivity is truly something else. I haven't explored the medium yet. I'm just kind of new to it. Although I'm kind of familiar with the concept, but I haven't really explored any of it. So yeah, I get the sense that a lot of it out there might have some kind of lean into some kind of more uh, risque aspects, perhaps. Um, oh yeah, Jason Furman, welcome to the party, man. Yeah, had some free time, so thought we would do a little live event. And yeah, excuse the shite tier quality of the video and everything. It's HP once again. It is what it is. Blasphemy. Oh yeah, I think I've said a lot of like blasphemous things in this whole paragraph here. So uh, I have read the official manga of Neon Genesis Evangelion. It's written and drawn by the character designer, but I've never seen the anime. I'm aware. Well, I would assume that the manga probably does a better job of like explaining the story, um, and it's still ongoing, is it not? Like I'm given to understand that like it's still going, even though the series wrapped up like 25 years ago or whatever. Um, I could recommend giving it a watch, especially the Netflix dub of it that they did is really good. Um, the the old dub of it, I know a lot of people will defend that and say that's the definitive version, but the Netflix version of Evangelion was actually really well done. There was the voices really did they really fit with that. Um, yeah, I could recommend giving it a watch, even though it's definitely not for everybody, and it's very odd in the way that it presents the story. I think it it's definitely kind of a landmark work, and I think justifiably so. Let's say, did you ever watch Spike Jonze's Her with Joaquin Phoenix? I have seen some of that. Very good watch. It seems to me that that is a very similar film in concept to another film that I have seen from the early 2000s, which I think gets overlooked a lot now. It's a film with Al Pacino in it called, I think it's called Simone or something like that. It's also a story about a guy who like falls in love with a AI or an artificial thing. I remember when that movie Her came out, I was like, wait, I think I've seen that before. I'll have to give that a look. Um, oh, I do like Joaquin Phoenix. I think he's a great actor. Um, very much so. King Kong 1933, yes. King Kong 1933 still goes hard. I will say that I think Peter Jackson's remake of it is possibly, it is one of the rare remakes that possibly may outshine the original, but the original is you know untouchable. Like the effects, maybe for the time, like what they were able to achieve in that movie was, you know, beyond. It's kind of unfathomable how good that movie really was. Even though it's just kind of like wall to wall screaming and but it has such a charm to it, and it's such a great movie, right? But I think Peter Jackson's remake added a little bit more depth to it. I will say this in the remake of King Kong, not that 70s like Jeff Bridges. Oh my goodness, that was horrible. But in the Peter Jackson 2005 remake of King Kong, there's a scene where one of the characters quotes a passage from Heart of Darkness as they're going on the island, and that is the most perfect example of using a literary reference in film that I have ever seen. Fit the scene. It was so evocative. Great stuff. Her is fantastic. Hell yes, the 80s. Yeah, 80, a child of the 80s, I believe, Jason. How I envy you having gotten to live through that era. I didn't come along till the 90s. And, that was still good, dominated by alt rock and, kind of flannel, lots of flannel. But yeah, um, yeah, I do envy you. The 80s are some, let's see. I'm reading Lonesome Dove right now. Seems like a book you take to, I saw Lonesome Dove just the other day in the bookstore, and I thought about picking it up because it's such a popular book here on BookTube, and I, uh, I will read that at some point, I think. But really, I don't know that I have to because my father can quote, and I mean this seriously, every single line of dialogue from the miniseries. Like literally, it's kind of disturbing to watch whenever that comes on, and he can literally quote every single line like a master actor reciting the script. Yeah, so I feel like I already got the story kind of through both the miniseries, but also through my dad, who references it all the time. But yeah, one day I will read Lonesome Dove. I have no doubt. The '80s are simultaneously the best and worst of film. Yeah, you do get a lot of direct that came out of the '80s. Like what is it? Is it Troll 2 didn't come out in the '80s, did it? No, that was in the '90s, I guess. But you definitely got a lot of crap that came out. But I think the gold to lead ratio is pretty good still. The official manga is finished. There's a ton of weird spinoffs. I don't know if you probably saw. Yes, I'm still pursuing my journey with manga. I started it last year. I've never read a manga before. I've read a lot. I've read plenty of American comics, but I finally read some manga last year, and I really enjoyed it. So I'm always on the lookout for new manga to read. Let's see. What do you think of the millennial female writers of today taking over Hollywood? Oh, now we're getting into some hot water. But yeah, I'll wade right in. It's not good, y'all. It is not good. The state of script writing in Hollywood. Subtlety is a lost art now. Um, it's South Park was right. Put a chick in it, make her lame and gay. Um, Nail on the head. It is. I mean, it is. It is not good where we're at in Hollywood, but they just have such a monopoly on it. I guess people keep forking over well, not on those girl power movies. Those girl power movies, I will say this, in their defense, they are committed. They are committed because although like the 355, that Charlie's Angels remake, which completely missed the point of the original series, the charm of it. Um, the infamous Ghostbusters remake. Um, I'll say this, even though those movies tank, they still keep making them. And I kind of, even though I think that it's some of the most poor writing I've seen in terms of just how ham-fisted they are with, if you watch The Critical Drinker, the message, just how ham-fisted they are with it. But I kind of have to admire the tenacity with which they keep turning out these movies that uh, no one really likes. I don't even think like they're marketed towards women, but I don't even think women like those movies. I mean, the concept of merit in our protagonists in film has kind of been eroded, and it's not at all to say in any way that I'm trying to be sexist or anything like that. But when you have the characters that are literally just like reciting just what what the authors, the screenwriters want you to know, and it's the most cringy thing you've ever seen. It's just not good, y'all. We got to do better. We got to hit them where it hurts and stop patronizing. And not only that, but the endless remakes and the sequels of movies from 30 years ago that no one asked for, except maybe the Top Gun remake, the Top Gun sequel, that might be all right. But yeah, it's weird. Hollywood is about creatively bankrupt at this point, and as I'm given to understand it, there is actually some commentary of that in this work here, pertaining to that about what it potentially means when a society can no longer create, when the creative drive is gone. I'm really itching to read this because the world we live in now, I feel like there's got to be something of merit in that. But yeah, I'm not a fan so much of. I feel like there's such a hostility with a lot of these movies. Like it is downright hostile to a large portion of the theater goers. And I haven't seen it, but I really heard that Barbie movie from last year that debuted simultaneously with Oppenheimer, that was really some just kind of in your face misandry kind of. So I love to see a good, strong female protagonist, like legitimately a good female protagonist. Like if you want a movie that has a great female protagonist, which is not cringy, which is not heavy-handed, and which is genuinely inspiring, watch Flashdance with Jennifer Beals. I mean that's a great character right there. She's just a good character, right? And I feel like that's kind of a lost art in Hollywood now, in favor of the message, as the critical drinker says. Let's see. Opinions on John Boorman's Excalibur. I have not seen Excalibur. I have not. I would like to, but I have not seen. I know it's Zack Snyder's favorite film. I hate Zack Snyder. Oh, come on, man. Well, I do understand why Zack Snyder is a very dislikable filmmaker, but I think he's actually. I think I respect the fact that he has a style. I feel like a lot of films nowadays, especially those just endless stream of Marvel films, the directors are totally interchangeable. Even though Zack Snyder has made some absolute shit, um, and ironically, it's the movie that he wrote, the Sucker Punch, the movie that he wrote, which is the worst that he's ever made, I think, so far. Well, I don't know those Netflix movies that he has out now. Ooh, I've heard horrible things, but I do admire the fact that he has a style, that his movies are recognizable. And I do know that Excalibur is his favorite film because that's the movie that's playing in Batman versus Superman whenever the Waynes get killed, which is also a nice little kind of double entendre there because it sets up Batman's character, literally the Dark Knight, who came out of watching a movie about knights, kind of a little subtext there, which I like. Let's see, Nah Simone is totally different, more cheesy than her. Her is dark. Yeah, um, it's been a long time since I've seen that Simone movie, and I've only seen a little bit of her. I did not know it was dark though. I thought it was kind of just like a odd kind of romantic dramedy. I might have to watch it. I didn't know it was dark. I do love the original King Kong. The effects are pretty cool. They look like Play-Doh now. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. I love Peter Jackson's King Kong extended edition. With some of these films, um, like with Peter Jackson films, I feel like and the same thing with Zack Snyder films. I feel like it's best to wait for the extended edition because the theatrical cut probably does not deliver the story as it could be best delivered. From what I understand, Shinji is way more of a weenie in the TV series, and the second most prominent character in the manga is Rei, rather than Asuka. Yes, he is. He is the archetypal crybaby hero in the series. But I like that. I like that it was a real. There's a real raw emotion to that, which I really did appreciate. And it does get very. His character gets much darker in the film, the end of Evangelion. I could definitely recommend watching it, especially because the film that really is like that is just uh, such a great conclusion to the series, even though it kind of is inscrutable. But yeah, the characters Ray I was the character I wanted to see more of the uh, in the series. So I'm glad to hear that the manga kind of switches the focus a little bit. Let's see, man, I hate the recent Dune adaptation, and I hate how the twink moth is being fed to me is the next massive start. I'm not sure. I saw the original. I saw Dune Part One. I saw that in theaters. And I'm not a fan of Dune the book. I don't. My animosity towards Dune the book has kind of cooled a little bit. Um, but I'm still not a fan of it. And I saw the Part One, and I was pretty bored throughout it. Yeah, and people said it looked good. No, it was gorgeous to look at. Yes, but like it's just the most monotone drab um, backdrop. Like there's a reason why Star Wars was not set entirely on Tatooine because you get tired of looking at that brown sand and stuff. I thought it was very boring. I didn't know if the story necessarily had to be dragged out quite as much as it was. I have not seen the second part though, so I can't comment. Yes, child of the '80s. Oh, the '80s were the last great time to be. Okay, now we're getting a little bit. Now we're getting a little bit into some hot water. I can see, but no comment there. Lonesome Dove is the best Western of all time, dude. The book is no the best Western. It's well, in terms of classical, like yes, I understand that, but I mean, Blood Meridian, man, that's the that's like the bar for Western. I'm not. That's not at all to throw shade at Lonesome Dove because trust me, I've seen the miniseries, and if the book is like the miniseries, then it's got to be gold. But the four best Western or five best Westerns I think I can name books are Blood Meridian, Warlock, Butcher's Crossing, and I haven't read it yet, but I plan to. I have it right down here. That is, um, that is what was that guy's name? Glendon Swarthout's The Shootist and Lonesome Dove. Those are probably like the five best Western novels I think I could name. I have high hopes for The Shootist because I love the film with John Wayne in it. The Duke's last film. We'll be getting to that sometime down here. Um, it came out the same year as Blood. Oh, yeah, that is hilarious. That really is hilarious. Um, yay. I think that a lot of the writing issues and shitty trope in cinema that exist today were planned all the way back in the day. Like all writers do is try to repeat what we've already seen done better. Well, yeah, that is like there's not much risk taking now because uh, like throughout the 40s and 50s, cinema in Hollywood at least was very formulaic. It was westerns and kind of like noir gangster films. Then when you get into the '60s, right, with like Bonnie and Clyde and Easy Rider, you start getting the new Hollywood era. And with the Deer Hunter, which really kind of kicked it off, where the director really had control. They were really uh, like had true like visionary films. And then after Heaven's Gate, which was ironically also directed by Michael Cimino, just like Deer Hunter, the man started and ended New Hollywood. And then it went back to the studio control, right? And so now you get films that are now especially they're very formulaic, but not even formulaic in like a good way. It's like they keep trying the same thing and it just doesn't work. They're too again. There's just such a hostility nowadays with so many of these films that I, again I can kind of tip my hat to the tenacity of it with which they stick to it. Although I believe even Disney's CEO has said now that they got to kind of roll it back because they've had some disappointments lately, and especially those god awful live action remakes, which are just literally doing the same thing that we've seen done better. It was planted all the way back in the day because like what we see now is just kind of it's like simulacra, right? It's a copy of a copy of a copy, right? By now, it's it's we're in a bad way creatively, and I think now is the prime uh, time that we could see a resurgence in more classical narratives, much like the Lord of the Rings, right? You know, the Lord of the Rings. The reason why those films still hold up so well is because they aren't cynical. They are the most earnest films that you will ever see, with such um, commendable classical sensibilities, with values such as courage and integrity and loyalty and honesty and such. And I think now what we desperately need, not only in film but in literature as well, is a return to books and stories and movies that that are good. I don't know how else to put it, but that are like that promote good things, right? Not the kind of jaded, uh, just at times kind of vile stuff that we see now. And I'm not a prude, but like there are some stuff that comes out now that I'm just kind of like it's just mean spirited sometimes, and I feel like that doesn't serve anybody well in the long run because you know you are what you eat, and like you're a lot of what we take in affects us in ways that we may not really know. And I feel like the more good we put out into the world with the stories that we tell, the better the world that we live in will be. And a lot of the stories, especially in film nowadays, are they're not good. Like they're like, and you know, a movie I keep bringing up is uh, the Joker movie. That is truly kind of it definitely captures the zeitgeist, but not in the best way. Not only is it an absolutely gutless film that it holds your hand throughout the whole thing and does not have near the balls that Taxi Driver did, but really it's just 2 hours of Trump bashing. Like that was the hilarious thing to me when that film came out is that it's just 2 hours of Trump bashing, and yet the critics, which they literally served that up to them on a silver platter, and yet they got preemptive with their criticism because they thought it was some kind of incel manifesto or something, and they shat on it before it even got going, and it was supposed to be the biggest olive branch that they could have, but they jumped the shark and came out the gate swinging and shit on their own the thing that was really served up to them, like I say, on a silver platter. But yeah, that movie and like in all these movies, that one the most prominent example, but also films like Maleficent and Gorilla, where you see the kind of postmodern reversal of classical conceptions of good and evil, which is not very. I don't think that's indicative of something positive of where we're at culturally, where we don't recognize evil as distinctly as we once did. We're seeing much, not only in film, but in the larger society more broadly. We're seeing much more sympathy with evil than we used to, and it's rather alarming because again, art is of course the kind of the barometer for where culture is, and judging by much of the art which our Western culture puts out now, we're not in the best place, the best headspace, I don't think. But there's always that's what we as amateur creators, that's the space that we can fill, right? We can create things that we can fill a need. That's how markets work. Where there's a demand, you can supply it. You can change the paradigm, if you will. Um, so let's see. Some people say that the 70s is where things truly went in a bad direction for cinema. Well, yes, where we start to lose complexity. Well, actually, I think we gained a lot of complexity in cinema in the 70s. Well, if you're talking about like Star Wars, because Star Wars is the one where it kind of flipped back from the much more gray and ambiguous narratives of like Taxi Driver and Vanishing Point, and stories like that into something much more classical. But the 70s, I think the film in that era was a result of the tumult more broadly societally. I mean, you're coming right off Nixon and Carter. It was chaos, and the oil embargo thing. It was a lot of friction, and of course, like women's lib and like Black Power and stuff. It was a very chaotic time, and of course, that's reflected in the art. So the films of that era are much, much more cynical by and large. And like I say, Star Wars is kind of the one that flipped it back into something much more classical. But yeah, I think the 70s is where it truly went. I do agree. I think that's where it went in a bad direction. Definitely. Is there any woman, including Penelope Cruz, that could make you reconsider Anthony Nadler? Oh, well, that's the good thing about sex in the modern world is that you don't have to. It's not necessarily a reproductive um, enterprise all the time. But let's see, who is another? Um, I will tell you who the. I will tell you who the 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 there's two women, yes, to answer your question. Well, kind of to answer your question. I wouldn't have kids with anyone, but there is two women that could bring me very close, and that would be Diane Kruger, literally Helen of Troy. I mean, just my goodness. And also, and here's the weird thing, is that despite being just absolutely a drop dead gorgeous bombshell, her career just is disappeared, and that is whoever the Nazi chick was in the Last Crusade. I don't know what her name was, because again, you don't see her in anything else. But damn, I'm talking. I mean, if Aryan women look like that, I don't know. It would have been very contentious for me if I was living in the 1930s, because if that's what the Aryans had to offer, I mean, damn, that would have been conflicting for me. But I jest, of course. But yeah, those two women, Diane Kruger and whoever the Nazi, the main Indiana Jones girl was in the Last Crusade, definitely. Let's see. Ripley is a good, yes, yes. Ripley, if you're talking about like from Alien, yes, absolutely fantastic female protagonist. It doesn't make her gender an issue, and that's the good thing. She's just the hero, and she happens to be female, and that's, I mean, as they say, it won't be an issue the less it is. It's only an issue sometimes because we make it an issue. And yeah, she is one for the record in terms of best screen heroines. Absolutely. Ripley and Sarah Connor, yes. Sarah Connor, uh, definitely a shift between the first and the second movies. In the first movie, she's kind of more um, traditional kind of damsel in distress, but the second one, she really went badass. But it was convincing and it was believable because she'd been through some shit, right? And again, yeah, great, great female protagonist there. My most hated film. Oh wait, I wonder which one that is. We've listed so many. Which my most hated film? Borman wanted to make a Lord of the Rings movie. That would have been totally great. Yes, I feel like it would have been a little bit more edgy than the pretty faithful adaptations that we got. Fun fact: in the 1960s, the Beatles had actually contacted Stanley Kubrick, and they tried to buy the right because Tolkien himself was still alive in the '60s, right? And they tried to get the rights themselves to make their own movie um, with Stanley Kubrick helming it and presumably the Beatles doing the soundtrack for it. And Tolkien did not go for it. He was not a fan. He was like, "Yeah, well, I don't think so." So put the kibosh on that. But there's an alternate reality out there somewhere where the Beatles made the Lord of the Rings movies. Um, Come on, watch Excalibur. I do want to watch Excalibur, but is it on? If it's on Netflix or Hulu or something, maybe. Um, Otherwise, I don't know. I guess I'd have to like buy it. But definitely, I do want to see it. Denis Villeneuve is I don't think he's garbage. I do think he's kind of. I'll say this: he picks his projects very well. Sicario, great movie. The sequel, unnecessary. But Sicario's great. Prisoners is a great movie. I really like that. And the Blade Runner sequel, even though I don't know that it really took the story in the most interesting direction, and I don't even know that it really needed to be. It's a solid movie. I do not like it as much as the original Blade Runner. And I feel like it was kind of too in love with its own visuals because the color palette in that is so kind of at the forward things. And again, I don't really know that I like where it kind of took the story or didn't take the story because it kind of I feel like the failure of that movie financially left some threads hanging which were meant to be taken care of in another sequel, which may never be. But I think Denis Villeneuve. I'm not a huge fan of all his films. I do like Sicario, mainly because Taylor Sheridan wrote that, and he's a great writer. I've liked all the films, most of the films that he's written, such as that and Hell or High Water. And I like Prisoners because that's a film that's pretty unique. I feel like I don't think I can liken that to a whole lot of movies that I've seen lately. So I do like Prisoners, and I think he's kind of overrated a little bit, but he's made good movies. Um, let's see, read the book, then judge. Which book would that be? Like the Arthur books, like Lamort d'Arthur. I have not read that, although I do have. Here's an Arthur book you can read. I know you're a fan of King Arthur, the Once and Future King. This is really the only Arthurian book that I've read. Quite liked it. It goes from whimsical to surprisingly dark, but good stuff. So I don't know if I can judge Excalibur based on that, but I may have to give the original Arthur books a read at some point. What about all other works? Well, which who are we talking about again? I'm surprised you didn't bring up True. Oh yes, True Grit. I do apologize. True Grit is one of the best westerns, absolutely, and that's possibly the most high-profile book that has ever come from an Arkansan author. And I want to throw that out there because little did I know that Charles Portis lived in Little Rock up until his death just a few years ago. And had I known that, I would have loved to have tracked down whatever nursing home he lived in and, you know, given him picked his brain. I would have liked to. But yes, True Grit, absolutely one of the best Westerns. I guess there's 6 great Western novels I can list then. Um, we're just talking about Dune. Um, yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the book. It, it it did what needed to be done for science fiction, I think, for the era. It gained it a lot of credibility literarily, but I find it kind of flat now. I love John Wayne, yes, great, great filmography there. I love Robert Mitchum. I've not watched a lot of Mitchum movies, but he's definitely an icon in his own right. Jack Vance is supposed to have read Dune in manuscript and told Herbert that it sucked. Um, Well, that's Jack Vance is a pretty big name in science fiction, so I wonder if Herbert heeded any of that advice. Um, I'd be curious to know that. Let's see. Clone John Wayne, make him president of it. Well, there's definitely one thing to get way to get things done. We have that. He's called Donald Trump. Let's see. I love Jack Vance's books, and I agree with him on the novel Dune. A24 is keeping cinema alive. Um, yeah, they put out a lot of movies, although it's some of their movies are the ones that I kind of talk about, and it kind of goes. Um, some of their movies are kind of that jaded, uh, a little bit too subversive kind of thing that I'm not really a huge fan of. Like, I think, did they not make that Midsummer movie, and like The Witch or the Witch, since it's spelled with two V's, I think. Those are some movies that, well, I'm not going to comment on those because I haven't seen all of those. But I will say they are definitely putting out some true bangers. But I'm not a fan of I don't think I would be a fan of all of the movies that they put out. Um, it's a great copy, by the way. Thank you. I've shown so many books here. I don't remember which one we were talking about. Tarantino and Stephen King have destroyed culture. Um, I do think Stephen King has had a deleterious effect on popular fiction, if only because of how hokey and lowbrow the prose is. But, but then again, that's not necessarily all to be laid at his feet. He's just kind of the most notorious for it, I guess. Tarantino, I don't know. I do like Tarantino because his movies are there's not an ounce of pretension to those movies. They're just him being him and being fun. And I do like those movies. Fun fact: my favorite Tarantino movie is actually The Hateful Eight. It's very difficult to marry a western to any other kind of genre because it doesn't usually work well. But I think that movie did a great job of marrying the western to like a mystery, a whodunit. So I don't think they've killed culture. Although I do think Stephen King has kind of dumbed down popular fiction in terms of the writing a little bit. Let's see. Do you think Hollywood will crash and smaller versions of Hollywood will crash? It will build across the world, a la the European style. Well, as filmmaking equipment becomes more and more affordable for individuals to make, I mean, you have people making films. You have actual filmmakers making films on iPhones now. Like, what was that movie from a few years ago? Unsane. It's like a Steven Soderbergh movie, I think, literally shot on an iPhone. As the filmmaking equipment becomes more affordable to the average person, I think that provides a great space for independents to kind of get into it because there are a lot of stories that you can tell that don't require big budgets that can be shot for kind of smaller scale things. And I think, yeah, definitely. I don't know that Hollywood will crash because there's just so much invested in it. But I do think that if they keep doing what they're doing with uh, sequels that nobody wants, nostalgia bait remakes of movies that were better 30 years ago, and the endless woke crap, I think that if they keep doing that, eventually they'll just have to change tack. I think that they'll just have to because even though like Disney's kind of walking it back now and like, well, maybe we don't need to be quite so divisive. I think there will be great space for other people to make films and such going forward. Um, Man, I do hate Joker as a phenomenon. It's like the perfect encapsulation of everything I hate about modern. Yes, preach it. When I saw that movie first, I saw it in theaters and I was like, this was awesome. But then when I actually analyzed the story, it's not awesome. It is a very weakly written story about a protagonist who is not even active in his own story, who just stumbles through his own life, who only ever does what the director, like the writers, it's not like Taxi Driver where it's genuinely edgy and ballsy. He only ever kills people that the audience actively wants him to kill. That Todd Phillips did not understand that character in the slightest. It's a very gutless film, but technically very well made. And of course, Joaquin Phoenix's performance was great. I'm not trying to knock that. My qualms with Joker lie strictly with the writing, which is I find pretty um, it's pretty weak, honestly. It does not obey like the classical conventions of storytelling. It's more just like a series of unfortunate events happening to this poor schmuck who just again kind of stumbles into the head of the movement, which is not nearly as interesting as watching an active protagonist uh, like in Taxi Driver. Um, let's see. Do not like anything those two guys made. Well, everybody has their taste. I'm rereading Vance's Lioness trilogy right now, one of the best fantasy works ever. I haven't read any Jack Vance, although after reading the Book of the New Sun, I kind of have been tempted to because I've heard that his stuff is kind of in that vein. That's kind of what spawned the Book of the New Sun. So I might have to give that a go. Dragon Masters in the Blue World are brilliant. Yeah, I need to check into that. Um, Trump just shot what? Huh. Trump just shot, huh? Not sure what you're thinking of. 70s were awesome. Well, fashion wise, music wise, definitely. And yeah, there were some serious good films. Rocky came out of the 70s. Um, Definitely. Apocalypse Now is yes, it is. Apocalypse Now is a masterpiece. 70s is my favorite era of filmmaking. It definitely does have a charm to it, but I feel for me, it's just a little bit too cynical. Like I, the Deer Hunter. I feel, well, to begin with, just the title of that movie. I don't know what kind of deer hunting they did in that movie, but it is not like any deer hunting I have ever done. Um, that was the strangest form of deer hunting I have ever seen in that movie, but that was kind of cynical. And then again, Taxi Driver is the big one, but then you also get that was also the golden age of porn. I can say that, and that definitely factored in there in a big way because porn was like mainstream acceptable in Hollywood. Like hell, Roger Ebert wrote reviews of actual like porn movies then. That was definitely a wild time to be alive for sure. Um, Biden equals Weekend at Bernie's. Yes. Yes, that is very much true. His who was the president? What was it Wilson? Back in like the early 20th century, had the stroke, and his wife was basically like the one who was doing the job. I feel like we're in a similar situation with that, definitely. And of course, the mainstream media turns now when they when it's convenient for them to look at what they've turned a blind eye to for years now. Let's see. You gave us The Conversation. I have not seen that. I have heard of it though. My first love. This is how we say goodbye in Austria. Yes, yes, exactly. That's I really wished I'd been in Indiana Jones's position in that scene. Allison Duty, that's the name. Yes. Last Crusade. I don't know what happened to her career, um, but she needed more than what she got because I mean you could sell tickets all day just based on that pretty face of hers. We got a Nazi chick soundbite. Yeah, yeah. Obviously jesting, but seriously, that the Last Crusade is not my favorite of the Indiana Jones movies, but it is the one that is the easiest on the eyes to watch. I will say that. Um, let's see. I guess he did. Ripley was a great character, and I saw the young Sigourney Weaver do musical comedy. Wow, I did not know she did that. Um, wow, she's been multi-talented then. Sucker Punch is my most hated film. Okay, yeah. Um, you would not think that a movie that is nonstop action with hot chicks and skimpy outfits could be boring, but it was. It was absolutely like watching paint dry. Um, yeah, and it's sad that that's the one movie that Zack Snyder has like written. That was like his real, brainchild's top to bottom, and yeah, it was his work. Well, I don't know if it is his worst now, but it was up to that point. Remember Kubrick's final film? I have not seen Eyes Wide Shut. I've not seen all of Stanley Kubrick's films. My favorite of his films, I think, would probably be Full Metal Jacket. Honestly, um, I like that film quite a bit. I have not seen Eyes Wide Shut though, but I've heard that it is definitely something. Sucker Punch is far from worse known has hot chicks, bro. Well, yeah, but still, there's only so much. Like it would have been better if it had been like a serious drama about a woman who was wrongly incarcerated in an asylum. But Zack Snyder can't do that kind of quiet film. He has to go bombastic and loud, so you get endless, ridiculous fantasy action, which was just is just boring. Um, I did not like Sucker Punch. Excalibur is wonderfully bad, brilliant sets, a young Helen Mirren, and the actor who played Arthur was great. I never heard it being wonderfully bad. I've only ever heard that it was like good, like that it's like the kind of premier fantasy film after I guess like Lord of the Rings. Denis is great most of the time. Naysayers can go to hell. Yeah, he's definitely he picks his projects very well. I think he's very careful about what he does. He's not like Ridley Scott that will just make any kind of movie, and also kind of destroys his own older movies in some cases. Prisoners is my favorite. Yeah, I think it would probably be my favorite of his too. Do love Villeneuve. Let's see. Right, Trumo with what? As to Arthurian books, Rosemary Sutcliffe, Sword of Sunset, great story. Helen Mirren, 1981. Yes, Helen Mirren. She was she not in um, what was she in? Uh, Caligula. Yes, she was also in that, was she not? Charles Portis only wrote 5 novels. I want to read all five. Let's see. Trump was just shot, but I have now. Oh shit! Are you? Oh, that's like. Oh, you're talking about like an actual like developing new. Oh gosh. Um, that is that's. Well, I would not. I would say that was surprising, but it's really not. I guess. It's wow. Um, that if that's like a developing story, shoot, that's something else. Gosh. Um, like the first two Dune novels, they tell a complete tragedy. Oh, we're way over time too. I was really going to keep this between like an hour and a half, but I guess we'll just go to two then, call it quits, I suppose. Um, like the first two Dune novels, they tell a complete tragedy. I haven't read the second one. I've only read the first one. I love all six Dune novels. I still have the first Dune book lying around since I could pick it up. Don't know when I'll be able to read it though. I just couldn't do anything after the first two. Worm God of Dune just utterly exceeded my suspension of disbelief powers. Yeah, even Dune fans all agree that the books just go to shit. I can't comment, obviously. Not a fan of Dune myself. There you go, Britain. Join the club. Um, Posted a review of it. Speaking of sequels no one asked for, I saw a trailer for Twisters yesterday. Oh, yes, absolutely. Yes. Yeah, no, I don't think that was a movie that anybody wanted a sequel for. Sure. Didn't you call it Dune Adolf Hitler? Yes, I did. Yes, because it has such a rabid base of defenders, even though I think it's has some uh, noticeable flaws. I thought Twister is pretty hilarious. My cousin, yeah. Oh wow, your cousin worked on that film. That's cool. Awesome. Is he behind the scenes set something like that? Yeah, but he was wrong. Ayn Rand is the Adolf Hitler of literature, not Frank Herbert. Yeah. Let's see. Regarding Jack Vance, you just can't go wrong with the Dying Earth. So start with that. Dying Earth is excellent. Woodrow Wilson, yes. That was the one. Last Crusade is my favorite. Indiana Jones gets his dad's. Oh yes, he does in that movie. That was kind of yeah, interesting development there. I love Last Crusade too. Show me your war face. Zack Snyder's worst film was Watchmen. Oh no, 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 he didn't. Well, he did change the source material. Yes, he absolutely did. But I would never say that Watchmen is his worst film. Um, I think, um, I think Watchmen is. It's about as good of an adaptation as that story was likely to get. And I think it's leagues better than the HBO adaptation, the HBO follow-up adaptation that it got. Let's see. Basically, all mainstream hits from the past have been brutally desecrated and stained, either by remakes or continuation. Yeah, true. There's just nothing new, right? There's just nothing new. Malcolm McDowell has been a lot of unhinged. Yes, he has. Dune, Ghost, Blasphemy. Captain Kirk died on screen in 1994. Um, yeah, so I'm not a huge Star Trek man myself, so I can't comment. So, um, yeah, we're coming up on 2 hours now, and really happy that we got a lot of audience participation going here for this live. Um, I think it was pretty good. It was went a little bit longer than are you a Republican? With a lowercase r, yes. I believe that a republic is better than a democracy. Yes, I wouldn't call myself a Republican, as in I'm not on board with all of the policies of the GOP, especially now that 19 of them voted for that bill that mandates that cars being manufactured going forward have to have um, shut-off measures that the police can and will use to restrict the movement of citizens going forward. I think they've kind of betrayed some of their classical values. So no, I'm not a Republican with capital R, although I am a Republican with a lowercase r. Ideologically more libertarian, I would suppose. Um, uh, Mike, good to hear from. Okay, yeah, yeah, Britain. I will keep reading. Good. Um, Donnie had an incident, but it's all right. It seems. Oh yeah, it doesn't surprise me. It does not surprise me as we go down to it. The trial didn't. Whatever you say. I mean, whatever you feel about Trump, and trust me, there's a lot of stuff. I understand. Trust me, I understand why the hatred there is. But it should be very alarming um, to anyone the lengths that they have gone to try to deprive you of a choice. The level of adversity that they have thrown at him is such that it is quite disturbing, honestly. And the pony show, which was that trial that he underwent a few weeks ago, I guess when they found that that didn't work, I mean, you got to do what you got to do, I guess, to you know protect your own interests whenever there's that level of a threat. But yeah, so if that's a true story, I hope he's all right. I don't wish anybody to be hurt or shot like that. If that's, I'll have to look into that after this. Um, I wish him the best. I hope he's all right. It sounds like a Reagan kind of thing, maybe small caliber pot shot kind of thing. It sounds like. Um, yeah, make monarchy great again. No, no. I do understand now the allure of monarchy. Kind of, there are some benefits to be derived from it in some ways, but no, I don't think you can ever rationally. Uh, I don't think you can rationally justify a hereditary rule and why, and also giving one person unilateral power. That's a recipe for disaster. I think, as history has kind of borne out. I think um, there are some benefits to be had with monarchy, but no, for me, a good um, a good old fashioned American constitutional republic is, I think, the optimal one. Even though historically republics sadly do not have the longest lifespans, and America is coming up on its 250th, I believe, roughly 250, and it's kind of uh, we're kind of it's breaking down. It definitely is breaking down, but still we have to hold to the values that um, defend the individual the most, that protect our right to property and our right to ourselves and our right to our own worship and such. And yeah, so I would say that Monarchy, not so much for me, but a good constitutional republic is what I, get behind most. So before you go, I wonder if you'd be willing to actually train the visual novel when you get to. Maybe if I can, you'll have to bear with me. I'm a Luddite here. This is taking all I got just to do this. I had to Google just how to do this live because I'm such a Luddite. I don't have Facebook. I don't have Twitter. All I have is this and an Instagram. I'm not. I don't. I'm not good with technology. I'm not good with software. So I can try to do that if I can figure it out, but no promises. It does get a bit tricky to get the most out of it on the first read. So okay, yeah, I'll definitely be conscientious when reading it because I definitely want to, get the most out of it. Yeah, suddenly people notice Biden is senile. Yes, suddenly when it becomes unavoidably apparent, even though it has been that way for years now. Yeah, the mainstream media just jumps on it now, when we're months away. But he's their horse. They ought to let him run. That's the way I see it. In fact, you pretty much required to go through it at least twice. But oh yeah, I will keep that in mind whenever I do get to it. And I'm going to try maybe get to it by the end of this year. Hopefully. So, are you a ginger? And is this disheartening? Yeah. Well, I am, as I believe it was South Park, the Daywalker, right? Yeah, I'm not like a ginger. I mean, I am fairly pale, but not so freckly. At least not anymore. Um, and yeah, it's pretty red, but it's not like the Ronald McDonald red. It's pretty kind of more of an auburny kind of color. But yeah, yeah, yeah. If you did not know this hair, these eyes, and this vampiric skin, you can probably tell where my ancestors came from. Um, the old mother country where my uh, forebears come from. Um, Crown, strong armed. Yeah, I just don't think I do understand. Like Gene Wolfe, I think Gene Wolfe, the author of Book of the New Sun, I think he was a monarchist himself, and I do understand the how that can be beneficial, but I don't think it's justifiable rationally. I don't think a hereditary rule and unilateral power um, is good. I think history kind of speaks differently to that. Um, do you have pets? Oh yeah, I have a cat. Yeah, I have a cat around here somewhere. She's a very old cat. I had her since I was in high school, and that was a decade ago. Um, she is, yeah, she is a handful. This carpet in here, I have had to clean up more accidents than I would like, but can't get rid of her. I've had her too long. Transylvania. Oh no, Ireland, not Transylvania, but Ireland. Yeah, that's where I hail from. Ancient cat. Yeah, she's about 15, 16 years old. She is a. I don't know what that is in cat years, but she she's definitely an old lady in cat years. She definitely is. But yeah, so I guess we cut it off right here around 2 hours. I think I have to go. Um, I have to go help someone in my family move some stuff now. Yeah, so yeah, thank everybody for coming. I hope you enjoyed the live, and I'm happy to do more of these. I mean, now that I know I can do it, so we'll just see going forward. I might do maybe a live every month for a couple weeks or so, perhaps. Good way to meet new people, and we can correspond this way. We can interact more in a live fashion. And yeah, thank you so much, Brittany. Yeah, just to recap, so coming up, if you want to know about what you can look forward to on the channel, just this morning I just finished In Search of Lost Time. I can now say I've read the whole thing. This was a feat. Not to toot my own horn too much, but I feel like I really accomplished something reading all 4,000 odd pages of this. Um, I don't know that it's changed me, but it definitely took enough of my life. So review of this will be forthcoming, and then after that we'll be getting into The Republic by Plato. I probably should have read this a long time ago, but going back to where it all started, philosophically speaking, and of course, once the first volume makes it to me, we're going to be diving off into The Decline of the West. I'm kind of skeptical as to this because I'm aware that it's very unconventional in its form of argumentation. But I've heard that it has a lot to offer. And, Cormac McCarthy kind of endorsed it, although he was kind of reluctantly endorsed it. But I'm going to give this a go, and we're going to see what we get out of The Decline of the West. Yeah, let's see. Great chat. Yeah, thanks, Jason. Thanks so much for coming. Let's see. Stephen King is reading my live. Hang in there. If you can make it to the end of The Dark Tower, I think you may find that it was worth it. And thank you. We'll look forward to this. Thank you for viewing. I literally can't do it without you. You are the lifeblood of this channel. So cheers to you. So we're going to wrap it up right here at an even hour. 1054 AD was the death of the West. What was that like? I'm sorry, I'm not up to date on ancient history so much. Was that like the fall of Rome, or he took on the task and went all the way with it? Yes, I did. I took on the task. But anyway, I'll be happy to do another one of these. And again, for all the new people that came in, this is not alcohol. this is purely a prop for visual purposes. This is just apple juice. I'm a teetotaler, actually. I don't drink, but it looks nice on the video. So just thought that would be kind of funny to have this. But anyway, so thank you all for coming. Happy to have had this chat, and I hope everyone's good until we do it again. So, au revoir.